no one is more powerful than your gut, or nothing is more powerful than your gut. Listen to it. What your gut tells you is the truth and the reality. So follow it. When your limitless becomes foolishness, that's when you start stagnating. That's when you start going downhill. If you've never run before, start with a walk jog.
Okay.
Jog a little, walk a little, jog a little, walk a little.
From the everyday athlete to the 3-time national champion, we will be chatting with Aisha Bilimoria, and she will share her insights into how to nourish your mind and body for peak performance. Hello and welcome to the Balanced Bite. I'm Aditya Sangvi, your host and the founder and CEO of Snackable. On this podcast, we intend to demystify the world of health and wellness with a range of guests who come from various backgrounds and who will provide you with science backed information that is approachable, relatable, and actionable. Hey Aisha, how are you doing? And great to have you here.
Hi, Aditya. Thank you so much for having me here.
No, my pleasure. And, this is one of our first podcasts which we are starting. And I would love to start maybe by delving into your journey a bit. Your journey has been quite inspiring.
Well, I think athletics just happened by flow. I used to be in a boarding school before I came to Bombay, and we were at the sports day at school. And my former coach, Mr. Savio D'Souza, he saw me running and he said that, "Oh, you run really well. I think you should come for athletics training." On a whim, my father just said, "You're good at something. Let's take you for training." And that was the start of it. We started training with him, ran our first nationals in the year 2001.
How old were you then?
I was 15.
Okay,
That
wow.
was my first
Wow.
nationals, my first national gold medal.
Wow.
I think that's where we kind of, Dad and I had a dream where we said that we would want to represent India at some stage in our career. And that's what kept us going.
No, that's amazing. And what about your journey till date? Like, if you can just touch upon that a bit. How did you start and what have been the last 10 years like?
Well, my journey, you mean like the last 20 years? What have they
More
been?
like, yeah.
Last 10 years have actually been me closing into retirement, but I think the last 20 years have just been a roller coaster ride. I keep getting these flashes of when I first started running, school, inter-school, ICSE, MSSA, all these local races which were just like, what can I say? They were a thrill.
Right.
Because Bombay athletics used to be on a buzz, we were like on the top of the list all the time. And to be a winner in that top of the list was an even bigger high.
Yeah.
So when I had these flashbacks of when we started athletics, versus now. Of course, time changes, athletes come and go. The sport also kind of evolves with the people that come
Right.
and go. So, a lot has happened in these last 20 years, lots of good, lots of bad, lots of learning, lots of unlearning. I traveled to 5 to 6 different countries for training. I trained with some of the best coaches in the world
Wow.
who gave me the best knowledge. So, yeah, the journey has been very what can I say, fruitful and very, very, sometimes very overwhelming also, but just overall very good. Like I'm very content, I'm very satisfied. There wouldn't be a day where I would think, I wish I could go back and change something because that would not make me the fit girl I
Right.
am today.
Right. No, that's amazing. And I think you're being too modest. I think you're a 3-time national winner.
A former
in
national champion,
Yeah.
yes.
One more thing I was curious to know is typically, I think you call yourself a movement specialist as well, right?
So when I call myself a movement specialist, I make sure that I'm putting all my ingredients, which is running, mobility, core training, or sticks for that matter, bring all of it together and give people a sort of
Holistic, you would say.
holistic, yeah, a holistic approach towards what their body can do and is meant to do.
Right. What are the key basics that they should follow, right? If they say want to just get into running as a hobby or whether they want to get into running professionally at a marathon level, what are the basics?
Well, I think people start off as a hobby,
Yeah,
which is where the whole running culture picked up in India in the first place.
correct.
I give it to the marathons because they really got people to come out of their comfort
Definitely,
zones
yeah.
and run. So, like, full marks to
I
the
think,
guys
in
who
fact,
started.
Bombay, I remember Stancy was the first
Was the
guy,
very
first
first.
company which
Yeah.
started it, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, I think the first city was Bombay, if
Yes.
I'm not mistaken. And it was
It
such a
will
big,
always be Bombay.
yeah,
Yeah. This race
it
will
was such a
always
big
be
deal, yeah,
Bombay.
yeah.
Uh,
And I was just surprised. I remember as a kid seeing that happening on TV, and I was like, wow, people actually run in a
yeah.
marathon.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think we owe it a lot to
yeah,
those guys for bringing this culture into India. But I say there are pros and cons to running in
yeah,
India because while a lot of people do start off as a hobby, eventually when you get categorized in these groups, it becomes like a menace.
right,
People have gotten obsessed with timings. People have gotten obsessed with medals. People have gotten, they've forgotten where they need to draw the boundary because like I said, we're limitless to do things. But when your limitless becomes foolishness, that's when you start stagnating. That's when you start going downhill. And that's when you start hurting yourself. And the reason why people start getting injured or they start stagnating is also because all they do is run, you
right,
know. There are very few coaches who are guiding them on the importance of strength training, on the importance of core training, on the importance of flexibility, along with mobility.
right,
Again, two very different things that people don't really understand. They either say, oh, let's do some stretching, but you don't need to stretch all the time. What about your joints?
yeah,
So I'm saying education is the reason why India is starting to go downhill in the running space. Lack of education, actually. And of course, if 10,000 people have stopped running today, 20,000 people have started running tomorrow.
right,
The population is growing in running, but also, why are we not able to sustain the people who have run for all this while?
right,
Why are they crashing? Why are they getting injured? Why are they stagnating? Why are their bodies still running in that inefficient manner the way it was running 10 years ago? So
right,
these are questions that you start asking yourself as a coach because you observe at that very deep level of how people are running. That's where I really work with clients, where I'm really focused on, why do you want to start running? Like, is it really a hobby? Do you want to run marathons? And if yes, you do want to run marathons, but run for yourself.
right.
It shouldn't be about getting some sort of, well, I understand that people never got that sort of recognition when they were younger, and today they have that opportunity to use social
Yeah,
media to get that recognition. I'm not saying don't take it or don't use it, but don't get obsessed with it. Running should
yeah,
be about you. Let your running do the talking, not just a photo of where I got a medal, how many medals I got, ran 20 races a year, 6 world majors, 20 world majors. I understand an achievement is an achievement,
yeah,
but are you really doing it for yourself is the question, or are you doing it because you want to prove a point to somebody else?
right.
That's a simple question you need to ask yourself when you start running. Because if you don't have passion from within, if you're not driven to be a better and better runner, then you know where their running journey is going to take them. That's where people start going down. That's where they're crashing. That's where they're getting injured.
Right. Yeah, talking about injury, actually, a lot of people are slightly skeptical about running as a sport, and it's this advice which has been passed on since generations that it's bad for your
Running
knees,
is
for
bad for your
example.
knees.
Yeah.
I know.
So, what are your thoughts on that? Because there are two sides to the coin, right? I think in this knee debate. So, what is your view?
Well, the Africans have been running now for decades. Very rarely do you hear of them getting injured, right? And they do a lot of long distance running.
Right.
They may not be running on road, but they're running on mud.
Yeah.
And they are running and they're running and they're just running. Like, I used to train in Africa at Haile Gebrselassie academy called Yaya Athletics.
And when was this?
This was in the year 2018.
Okay.
And we would just wake up and see these guys are running. Post lunch, they're running, or they're in the gym doing some strength training. Evening, they're running. When are they not running? Not once in that time that I train in Africa did I ever hear an African complaining of my knees are hurting. Primarily because their mechanic of running is excellent. Like, it's par excellence. Like, you cannot compare. They're so grounded with their feet. And I'm not
And
going
is
to
it
get.
also because of the training that they get in Africa, or is it
No,
just
it's just in Africa, running is a way to escape poverty,
Hmm.
right? They're not just running because they're passionate about running. They're also running because it's an escape route to earn a livelihood. Is in many countries as well, but Africa tops that list because, of course, the poverty line there is
right?
negligible. Like it's something we can't even talk about. It's that bad. So they use running as a tool to elevate their poverty.
Right.
So, as in to uplift themselves and not live in that poverty. We've seen the conditions they live in, we've seen the kind of food they eat, and that makes you so grateful for what you have. So, when people say, oh, running is bad for my knees, or oh, I got injured because I wore the wrong shoe, and I'm just saying a very simple thing. What is the mechanics of your body when you're running?
Right.
Are they good? Are they poor? Are they below average? Once you understand the mechanics of your body and then you start addressing where is my pain coming from, that's when you realize that your knee pain may actually have nothing to do with your knees. Because generally, knee pain actually has nothing to do with your knees. It originates from different places, but because the knee is such a big joint that takes the load of your upper body and a part of your lower body, it will take the impact first. It will
Right.
take a hit first, right? So it's not really the knee that's doing the damage to the knee. It's coming from somewhere because either you're too stiff in the hip, there is some mechanical, I would say, in Hindi they say locha.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's happening somewhere. It could be coming from your ankles, your foot, lack of strength somewhere in your glutes, in your hammies. Anything can cause you pain in your knees. So why blame running for it? Yeah. Why
And
blame a
people also
sport?
say it's a mind thing as well sometimes.
No, pain is a real thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying pain is not a real thing, and people are getting knee pain. But I'm saying, are you addressing these issues?
Right.
These issues need to be addressed. Don't blame a shoe if the mechanics of your body are not correct. Don't blame the shoe if your feet are not mobile. Foot mobility, toe mobility, finger mobility, wrist mobility, these small, small things people don't talk about. Also, a lot of people are not aware about these things.
Exactly.
But you're very quick to judge the shoe, you're very quick to judge the sport. Those are the things that make me really upset with the
Right.
running community in India, is that they're very quick to blame something but never ready to take the onus that something could be amiss with me. Like, where am I going wrong? What
Right.
can I do right to make sure that I don't have knee pain? I've had knee pain now for the last 3 years.
Okay.
You never once hear me talking about it on social media because I know where my knee pain's coming from. I know what's causing it. I know there are days where I'll have no knee pain, but then there are days I have excruciating knee pain. I have wear and tear. I've run 25 years of my life,
I can
competitively run
imagine.
20 years. So I have wear and tear, but I know how to work around that wear and tear. Work on food, work on recovery, oil massages, making sure that it doesn't further wear and tear,
Right.
right? So wear and tear is inevitable. What are the precautions that, again, I ask myself, what have I done today that's given me this knee pain? I know it. I did something on the hill. I ran downhill. I know all these things. It
And that one time, or is it multiple
Well,
incidents?
like I would say in my case, it's a buildup of
Right.
many wrong things that I did as a young girl. But I have undone those things, and that's why my pain is better.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I've lived in a lot of pain at one given point of time. Some really heavy weightlifting with poor guidance, lots of injuries, my accident. Again, just a lot of wrong training, listening to many coaches that caused too much damage to my body, and I caused it myself. I don't blame those coaches because, well, I went with full trust,
Right.
right? And I was the one who believed that they were in the right. So I don't blame anyone. When I learned that, okay, things were going downhill, now what can I do to get better? Is when I started really focusing on myself, not even the sport, because the sport is going to stay irrelevant if you run or not.
Yeah.
But how well can you take care of yourself so that you don't get this foot pain, knee pain? I used to have neck pain. Addressing the smallest things, as small as sitting on a scooty and wearing a helmet while you're riding the scooter,
Right.
which can give you neck pain. In return, that neck pain can give you some pain in your ankle as well. But with me, I'm very detailed with my understanding of the human body. That's why I can understand it.
Of course.
But I always tell people, if you don't understand something, ask experts. There are good sports doctors today. There are good sports physios today. There are good sports therapists today. We also have some really good coaches. I'm not saying we don't have. We do have some great
Yeah.
coaches. But you have to listen to those good coaches, you know. You can't just say, oh, she thinks she knows it all. But she does. I mean,
Right.
it's experience, it's study, it's learning, it's unlearning, it's all of it. And, you know, it's people are always very hesitant. Like, they like to be in that box. Like, my coach said this, so this is right.
Right.
But my coach, but maybe your coach doesn't know enough.
So one thing I want to touch upon is, say, an average Joe, right, who decides, listen, I want to start running, right? Now they are not going to get into, listen, I'll get a coach to teach me, or I'll work with an expert, or go to a doctor. So what are the basic tips, right, which they can do to avoid that knee pain, or what, just the pure basics, if you can just touch upon, so that the viewer of this podcast can leave with some of these tips.
I'll always tell people to start slow.
Okay.
Firstly, if you've never run before, start with a walk jog.
Okay.
Jog a little, walk a little, jog a little, walk a little. That's how you start building your confidence that you'll be able to go the distance when you don't have to walk.
Yeah.
Right?
And jog walk, what is the, I mean, is it like
I start with
a
very
couple of
simple. I
seconds?
start with so basic, like 30 seconds jog, 30 seconds walk. You have to, as a coach, you have to come down to people's level.
Definitely.
I could be a A-list coach, but if a client comes to me or a student comes to me who's in their 30s and never run, and I'm telling you from an experience because I've had clients come like that, we've had to build them from like they're 5 years old because they know nothing about sport. They know
Right.
nothing about running. When you come down to their level, firstly, they start trusting you. They start putting their confidence in you. The minute that relationship is built with your coach, or
Yeah.
even if you don't have a coach, just with yourself, that okay, I can do this. I'll run 30 seconds, I'll walk 30 seconds. Oh, 30 seconds seems easy. I'll go 45 seconds. 45 is easy. Let me go for one. So as your confidence builds up, you build that relationship with yourself, with or without a coach,
Yeah.
right? But when you get started also, I always say start slow. So the second most important thing that I always tell people to do is yoga. Now, imagine yoga is a 5,000-year-old art form that originates from our country. And people here don't value it enough to use its benefits because yoga gives you everything from mobility to flexibility to strength to core strength to stability. And we're always chasing these other modalities to train, but we're really forgetting that what we have here is so deep rooted in our culture. And unfortunately, the West has taken it away from us and created all these other different, I don't know, whatever we want to call it, many things that we can call. But when you have yoga alongside with your running, you can also very naturally see how well your body moves because yoga takes care of alignment, it takes care of your posture, it takes care of your strength, flexibility, mobility, like I just said, takes care of everything, which in return also helps you run more smoothly, more efficiently, lesser injuries, lesser fatigue, all of that. So the benefits of having yoga alongside running, especially if you're a newcomer, are just wondrous.
Yeah. So, Aisha, let's dive into nutrition. What are your thoughts in terms of, food and nutrition? Any protocols that you follow? What is your typical day like?
I'm such a food junkie, you know. I love eating. I don't know, it's somehow the kind of food I used to eat never went well with my training. And I'm not very proud of it, but even though I feel like I'm more disciplined now, I just feel that so much of my career as an athlete went downhill because of the kind of food I was eating. Not saying that I was not eating good food, I was eating good food. It was just not complementing the training.
Right.
And there was a time when nobody taught us anything about food, right? Because, well, we're simple middle class family people who eat what's on the table. Parsi food, uh, there's the likes of the dhansak and the curry chawal and the bhindi and the chauri and all of that. But it's all topped up with masala and you know how Indian food
Yeah.
is, right? Or Parsi food. It's tasty food. It's just not healthy enough for an athlete. And while you're also eating the non-vegetarian, it's not enough to complement, or wasn't enough at that point of time, complement the training that I was doing. So while I always thought that, sure, we eat great food, the food is in check, but we always ended up eating the wrong things at the wrong time. And like before a race, my mother would always say, like between races, right? Because you had your heats in the morning, semi-finals at midday, finals at like 4 o'clock. So what do you eat in between? Sandwiches, or you're eating jam sandwich or something. But it's all very,
Processed
no,
and
it's not processed. It's just food that spikes your insulin. So you're basically getting tired, you're getting lethargic, you're losing energy. And all these things we never knew, because also there was a time where we just ran on adrenaline. We didn't think about these things.
right.
Today, sure, we overthink these things. I still feel like eating everything in moderation is the key. And I'm not talking like professional athlete level. I'm talking even just at base level. There are certain foods that you need to have just so that you don't end up having diabetes or any other organ issues, because today's food is much more processed than what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So while I try to eat a healthy diet, I think I do, but just like a day before, my cousin just gave me a full lowdown on how waffles are like full of carbs. And I said, but I eat millet waffles. And he's like, that's still carbohydrates. Like, you need protein in your body. And I was
Right.
like, oh man,
And the
what?
sugar as well,
And the
right?
sugar as
Yeah.
well, because then you just top it up with like
Yeah.
jam or some
Yeah.
peanut butter or almond butter. And you're just making it sugary. But that's just what I feel like. I'm still growing and evolving and learning so much about food. I love following a sattvic food lifestyle. I love eating the Ayurveda way. But then I also love the junk, and I love the sugars, and I love snacking also. Like, I can't deny the fact that I don't love snacking. Having that 5 o'clock, they say that afternoon time is that Kumbhkaran time where
Yeah.
people feel sleepy. Even like Parsis, because we eat a heavy lunch.
Yeah.
And like Sunday afternoon after your dhansak, you want to take a nap. For me, that sort of time, Kumbhkaran time, is that 5 to 6. If I'm not eating a snack in that time, I'm getting anxiety. Okay, so there was a time where I was eating a lot of junky snacks, because also there was nothing better till you guys came into the market. And yeah, today there are options to eat healthy snacks as well.
Right.
And why not, right? If it's available, why not eat it? Why are we still going to that completely oily processed stuff where it's actually not giving you any health benefit also, and it's not giving your tummy that sort of, I don't know, it's giving you that burning fiery, I feel it.
Right.
I feel the foods I eat, spicy food, non-spicy foods. You can just feel it in your gut, how it feels, the way it digests. So me and food have a relationship that can be talked about for hours. But in a nutshell, I always say eat in moderation. Have your proteins, have your carbs, have your fats. Don't follow trends. Follow your gut. Listen to your gut. I have evolved a lot with food, because I realized that there were certain foods that just didn't suit me at a certain point of time in my life. I think I needed to completely get those out of my system.
And how did you figure out which foods work for you and don't?
Because I had a lot of acid reflux, I had a lot of acidity, poor sleep patterns. So a few years ago, when I met an Ayurvedic doctor, because I'm completely off allopathy, I only do Ayurveda and homeopathy. So she told me certain things about my energy and what sort of foods suit and don't suit me. And she said, these are what are causing these things in your body. Because you're not aware of it, I'm letting you know.
Right.
And then when I slowly, slowly started eradicating them from my system, I actually did better. I slept better. My digestion was better. I started having small things like coconut in the morning, almonds in the morning. That gave me more energy. So I started eating more energy giving foods in the first half of the day. Started understanding sugar, where it kicks in for me, at what time I'm really craving sugar, what is the worst time to have sugar. So I love reading about food, and I've done a lot of research on my own. I've of course I've also taken a lot of help from experts. I have friends who've guided me well, but there was a time when people were trying to like tell me you should go vegan, try a keto diet, try a paleo diet, and I just kept thinking to myself, don't listen to anyone, listen to your gut. That's why they say gut feeling.
Yeah.
The reason why they say gut feeling is because your gut is so powerful, it will tell you what it wants and what it doesn't
Right.
want. Besides the cravings that we all have as humans, right? We're trying so hard to cut off foods from our diet, we're trying so hard to like be disciplined, but at the end of the day, listen to your gut. I know that there are certain foods that are really bad for us. Like, I'm not denying that today the whole food market has changed so much, but you also have just one life to live. Live it healthy, live it well. Don't succumb to your cravings, but eat in moderation. Enjoy what you eat. Most important, enjoy it, right? If you're
Right.
not enjoying what you're eating, then no matter what diet you're on, you're never gonna really process that food in your body.
Yeah.
So I think my journey with food has really evolved. Coming to today, actually coming back to your question, I do have quite a bit of discipline in my food. Through the week, I think I eat very healthy. I eat, if I say I'm going to eat waffles, then I don't know. Some people may just take offense to this, but I eat a mix of everything.
Right.
Typically, my day does start with protein. But if because what I love about protein is that it keeps you full for a long time.
Very
Yeah,
satiating.
very
Yeah.
satiating. And then you don't crave that any junky stuff. When I'm working out in the morning, I like to start either with a carrot beetroot juice, like a shot of it, or I'll have some coconut or almonds, or sometimes a fruit. Depends on what the workout is on that day. But the days I'm not working out in the morning and I've just woken up and I'm at home relaxing, then it's a protein diet for sure, because I like the idea of protein, carbs, protein. I
Right.
also try to finish my day off with a protein. The whole point of protein in your body is that it helps you repair and heal,
Right.
right, the muscles, and no better time to heal your muscles than the time when you're sleeping. So I also pop in a lot of magnesium in the night because that helps with my recovery.
Right.
It helps me with good sleep. I'm not addicted to magnesium, but I think it has helped me tremendously
And
to,
it's not that habit forming. I've been having magnesium as well.
yeah.
There's one other one which has become very popular recently. They are in these gummies and all. I forget what it's called. That is apparently habit forming, but
Okay.
magnesium is not.
No, your body needs magnesium.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
sometimes people don't want to have supplementation or tabs or anything. So you can have natural foods. I'm a big a believer that natural foods have the power to heal you, at the same time give you energy. But I know that food science speaks differently of it, and a lot of people may not like it when I say
Right.
it, but I feel that food itself is so powerful, that if you eat it right, it can create wonders. Like, an alternative for magnesium tabs can also be pomegranate.
Right.
It's so high in magnesium, but rather than sitting and eating pomegranate in the night, people will just pop a tab in and say it's quick. So
Right.
again, it's perspective, it's how people want to consume it. But I always believe that as natural as you eat is
The best
is
way
good
to
for
go.
your
Yeah.
body. Yeah. Yeah.
No, definitely. And you touched upon protein a bit, right? So, obviously, there's a lot of attention to protein
Yeah.
recently. People are realizing that protein is, in fact, I was reading some statistic that 80% of Indians are protein deficient, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially, we have a huge vegetarian, vegan population. Who doesn't get access to very bioavailable sources of protein. So, do you typically do protein shakes to supplement your protein intake, or do you just restrict yourself to natural sources of protein?
India typically is a high on carbohydrate diet.
Right.
Yeah. Which has been for, I would say, now centuries,
Yeah.
because that's just how our culture has evolved.
Yeah.
We again have been kind of inspired by the West to bring the meats in. And I definitely do believe that the amount of protein that goes into your body comes from a mix of the non-vegetarian and the vegetarian. But the reason why we're supplementing with powders or any of these products that we're consuming besides the natural food is because of the grams of protein that should go into your body.
Yeah.
But I
Right.
do know that natural foods don't give you enough protein.
Right.
That's why we consume supplements. The importance of protein in our body has been something that we should have paid attention to years ago.
Yeah.
Years ago, it's just that we were not smart enough, or we didn't know where to find that sort of education. Nobody was informing us of the right kind of foods. Today, people are more evolved. The world has started traveling more, so their knowledge on food is better. But protein is so important for us. I
Yeah.
wish people understood that, like, not disrespecting any of these diets, while I know some of them work, but some of them are too extreme.
Right.
But the ones that are talking of a very high protein diet are actually doing the right thing. Because for your muscles to grow, for your muscles to work well, to not be injured, having that high protein diet in your food ecosystem is extremely important. And unfortunately, a vegetarian diet is not giving you adequate protein. It
Right.
does have protein, 100% has protein. And I'm a big believer that your chana, moong, sprouts, paneer, all of that has a great source of protein, just not enough.
Exactly,
Just not
because I
enough.
think even like moong, and we were discussing
Yeah,
about moong.
yeah.
Moong is, I think, 18 to 20%
Yes,
protein,
yes.
right? And
But think of how much moong you have to eat
exactly,
to get that
it's
protein
not
in your
practical.
body. Yeah.
And that's what we were also trying to address as a problem in Snackable, right? Because when we talk to customers, they were very wary of consuming those whey protein shakes, like especially women and children. Parents don't like to obviously give a protein shake to their kid, which
Absolutely.
has like a really built up guy's
Yeah,
photo on top,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then there is the other brands which claim that, like Protein X, which claim that they are giving a good source of protein, but it's also mixed with a lot of different things,
Yeah.
right? And recent articles, I'm sure you have seen, have come up with a lot of controversial news around this entire
Yeah,
industry.
yeah.
So we were also thinking how to solve that problem. How do you create a source of protein which is clean, right? And doesn't have all those additives like sucralose and the likes. So, we have developed something like that, and we are hoping that that helps this audience who's in between. They don't want to have those protein shakes, but they want like a 10 to 15 grams of protein,
Yeah.
right?
In their
So,
snacks.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's more like a drink actually, but
Okay.
something new for us also. But we are experimenting with it because we genuinely feel that problem needs solving.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's see. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I think, and one thing I've noticed is the minute I increase my protein intake, my sugar cravings also reduced a bit,
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
Again, because of
Yes.
that satiation,
Yes.
maybe,
Yes.
and overall metabolically also I feel much fitter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think protein is surely something we all need to focus on a little more.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I think protein is important, not just for athletes. Of course, athletes are on a fairly high protein.
Correct.
They're sort of on a 60-40 diet with 60 protein. In that 40%, they're playing between fats and
And
carbs, fibers as well. Very important for muscle
Yeah.
rebuilding. But yes, protein is such an important source when you're competing. And even if you're not competing, just for general well being, like I said, for good muscle
Yeah.
growth, just for good alertness, attentiveness, just to have good strength in your body, I
Right.
think protein is extremely important.
Right. No, definitely, I agree. And one more thing you mentioned, which was interesting, before your workouts and all, you generally have juices, right? Again,
No, only one kind of juice.
the carrot and
The
beetroot.
carrot beetroot.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
You can't have a juice that has sugar in it.
yeah, like orange or something would be
No.
too high in fructose
Yes.
content.
Yes.
But carrot and beetroot obviously is a great choice, obviously. But I meant to say that eventually carrot and beetroot are also carbs. So
Yeah.
do you do that so that you have that energy level while you're working
I'll
out?
have
And
that on the day when I'm running.
right.
Yeah. But on the day I'm lifting, so funny because my cousin, who's like a food guru, I hope he's watching this. But just yesterday, so funny, he said, I want you to eat protein even before you hit the gym.
Wow.
And I said, but how does that work? Because all our lives we've been told to have carbohydrates
Yeah.
as a pre workout. He said, yeah, but that you need that energy when you're going for a run,
Right.
not when you're lifting. When you're lifting, you need to have a different kind of energy and power in your body
Right.
that helps you get through the session. When you're running, you're burning your calories much faster.
Yeah.
So those carbs are getting depleted quicker.
Right.
But when you're lifting, it's a whole different ball game with food. And I was like, wow, one more thing to learn today.
And I think that's what's key, right? Diet is so personalized. I
Yes,
mean,
exactly.
there are people obviously who are, say, pre-diabetic or diabetic who can't consume carbs.
Or have any
To
other illnesses,
Yeah, yeah, or just people like I know so many people who basically uh, flourish on a high carb diet, right?
Yeah.
Because they have the physical activity to basically metabolically use the glucose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's so personalized, and I think that what you mentioned, right, the rely on your gut is, I think, very
Yes.
important when it
Yes.
comes to food and
Yeah.
protein
Yeah.
intake.
And another myth that people have, right? That, oh, you'll burn the sugar out, or
Yeah,
because your metabolic rate is so high. Actually, that's a myth, because what sugar does is it makes you lethargic, it makes you sleepy, and it reduces strength in your muscles,
right.
which nobody taught me when I was a complete sugar addict as a young girl. Running at the peak of my career, I just couldn't do without sugar, because also that's what your body does, right?
Yeah,
When you're burning so many calories, you are going to crave sugar or some form of
yeah,
carbohydrates. The immediate place where your hand goes to is the chocolate or anything that's sweet, right? Because also it's a comfort food. The minute you have it, you also think it's, I gave myself a reward. It's that mindset. Sugar's like that, giving myself a reward. The more and more I did that, I feel like one of my biggest career crashes was my intake of sugar.
okay,
And when my mother used to keep telling me, stop having so much sugar, it's slowing you down, it's slowing you down, I never paid heed to it. I started seeing it more and more when I was getting injured, that my recovery was slower. But also, it was such a vicious cycle, because the more I was getting injured, the more depressed I was. The more depressed I was, the more my hands went to sugar, you
right.
know. And obviously, my protein intake was not great at that point of time. So I was in this vicious cycle that was just running around sugar and carbs, sugar and carbs. When I started learning the benefits of protein, is when I realized that, just like you said, the more protein I have, the less sugar craving I have.
Right.
And funnily, that's the same message I got yesterday from my cousin, who said, increase your intake of protein, your body will naturally disregard that sugar. You just won't want it,
Exactly.
you know? So that's why that protein shake right after a workout is also super important, because it immediately helps the rebuilding of that wear and tear of
Yeah,
the muscle. It satiates you, it keeps you full. And when that protein is in the process of digesting, then you can start eating some food, because it has to complement well as well.
obviously.
People use supplements as a quick fix, and that's also something that people need to be aware of, that supplements are supplements. They're called supplements for a reason. They're not taking away from you the food that you're supposed to eat,
Right.
because solid foods are equally important in your body. In fact, more important than the supplement.
So, Aisha, why don't we get into fitness a bit? I know we touched upon it a little bit earlier when we were discussing running, but just at a generic level, right, for the normal audience who may not be running, how important, according to you, is strength training?
Very important. I think general fitness is important for people. In today's day and age, because of the way our lifestyle has been designed, we've lost those basic movements. I mean, we've lost something as basic as an Indian toilet. Think about it. Why were people not getting constipated in the past? Because we had the Indian toilets where you could squat fully and
Right.
sit into your hip. Today, people struggle to sit in their hips. Why? Because we're constantly sitting on chairs. If you pay attention to the pattern of how evolution has happened in India, we've become more and more unfit. Even though the whole trend of fitness has actually come into our system, we're becoming more and more unfit with our basic body movements. People have stopped climbing stairs because we've gotten used to the lift. People have stopped sitting down on the floor because we've got sofas and chairs. People cannot lift their own bags anymore because we've got trolleys. So think about it. We've evolved to sort of go backward,
Yeah.
right? Think about it. It's so simple. Why did our parents or even grandparents are living for so long because there was a time where they did everything by themselves. They picked up their own buckets, they picked up their own bags, even if they have to climb up and down 2 3 floors, because back in the day very few buildings had lifts, right? The whole
Right.
concept of lift was not there. They, if they had to sit down on the floor and play with their kids, they would cross their leg or sit in, just in a very comfortable position on the floor and still be good with their
Right.
body. People have lost that today. So just to bring all of that back is the reason why we do mobility training, so that we get back to those primal postures that our bodies are designed to move in.
Right.
Walking up the stairs is the simplest activity that you can do, especially in the corporate space, because they are the ones who are struggling with strength, posture, and time, right? And I always tell my clients that even if we can't work out today, just make sure you walk up 5 flights of stairs. More than enough. Good for building strength in your legs, good for your heart health, and also just a full body activity, right? You have to use your whole body to move up. Your body
Yeah.
anyway moves as one unit. But when you're climbing upstairs, your entire body is activated to go upward. Think of the strength, think of the cardio, think of your heart, think of everything when you're walking upstairs. Simplest activity, but people do not wish to do it. So
Right.
that's something I recommend a lot to people. Yoga, again, can't stress enough on how important yoga is. Today you even have desk yoga available,
Yeah.
right? We can sit right here and just do certain movements, twist and turn, extend our leg out straight, strengthen the quadriceps. There is everything in the world that you can do if you want to do it. But if you make up your mind with excuses, then you'll wallow in those excuses and not make time for yourself. But there are people, some of them I've seen personally, a few friends of mine, they had a bit of a dip in their health and they started taking their health really seriously. Quit smoking, quit alcohol, even though they have hectic corporate jobs, they'll make time just to do things for themselves. They'll say 10 minutes in the morning are mine. I'll do 5 Surya Namaskars and I feel great. That's all we want. That's what we want.
And sometimes less is more, right? I mean,
Absolutely. Not sometimes. I feel all the time. Less is more. Why are we chasing more all the time? Also, it's a very city thing. It's a city culture.
yeah.
More, more, more. I want more. I want more money. I want more clothes. I want more food. I want more everything. But look at the people in the villages. They have nothing and they're so content.
Right.
When I work with children in villages, we go in interior villages in this country. I've worked where
This is with your
Project Fit Girl, Project
yeah,
Fit Girl.
foundation. Yeah.
People still think the world is flat. People
Wow.
have not left their villages because they love that life. They feel it's an evil world outside the boundaries of that lake. That's where the world is still at. And I love it because their world is secure, it's safe. There's no ego, there's no arrogance, there is no animosity. Nobody is vindictive towards each other because they live in harmony.
Right.
That's how the world was meant to live. Because when also you live in harmony, you value your health more, right? The more we're chasing things, the less we're forgetting who we are, where our health is at, that we're meant to be on this planet for ourselves. Everything else is going to happen, but you've got to actually take care of your health in all of it.
So fitness, we have obviously touched upon. A couple of key takeaways, sorry, is incorporate yoga as much as possible, even if it's something very basic. And if you don't have a lot of movement in your life, just climb stairs. I think that's the simplest
Yeah.
advice you can give, which
Yeah.
we all have forgotten, right?
Yes.
Now, coming to the other side, right, of people who are obviously into fitness, because many people are becoming more and more passionate about fitness, and everyone is using technology. And I think there are, at least being a user of these fitness trackers, I feel there are a lot of benefits as well. But there's also a mentality where people are focusing too much on heart
Yeah.
zones
Yeah.
and things like that. So
Yeah.
what is your overall take on fitness tracking or technology playing a role in overall in fitness journeys of people?
I think technology has definitely boomed sports in every way. It has its pros and cons. Again, like everything
Yeah.
has its pros and cons. I think the importance of technology, especially if you are a professional athlete, plays a huge role, because when you're at the world level or you're at an Olympic level or even if you're at a championship level where you're representing your country, it's the smallest thing that matters in that moment in time of your race or your event.
And the data as well.
And
I'm
the
sure
data
that is
as well,
so valuable.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it's so valuable. Be it a glucose monitor or be it a ring or be it a band that you're wearing. These stats, they, if you take it in the right way, mentally, if you're in the right frame of mind, you will use these stats to your benefit.
Right.
A lot of people are, unfortunately, in the amateur space of sport, a lot of people are getting paranoid. They're getting obsessed again. They're getting anxiety. I was one of those people, I can say it. But the day I learned to put it away and only focus on the stats, I said, okay, this is my day to day stats. This is the reality of it. You see it, you learn from it, you move on. That's why I've started enjoying these wearables a lot more.
Yeah.
Because I remember the first time I wore the glucose monitor, I even told the team, I said, this is driving me crazy. Like my insulin keeps spiking and
I
it's
can
so high.
relate. Yeah.
But they said that's what it's meant for. It's meant to teach you where to cut down those sugars. It will. So when I started getting education on it, is when I realized that I can use this smartly rather than getting over obsessed over it.
Yeah.
And it helped me tremendously to cut my foods out. Like
Yeah.
cut as in when was the time I wanted to eat sugar, when I shouldn't have the sugar. Primarily my focus has been around sugar because I've been quite a sugar addict.
Yeah.
And that's something that has, like I said, crashed me in my running for a long time. So I'm very, very aware of how and when now to eat sugar. And I think that technology helped me a lot. Um, I've been wearing a couple of these wearables for a
Yeah.
long time now, and I think also in a very good zone where I know that some days are just not good days. Even if the wearable says that today's a great day, recovery is great, you can go out and run, but bodily I'm feeling tired, exhausted, I'll just drop everything. I won't work out.
Right.
Again, listen to your gut. Everything around you is here to support you, help you, and guide you. But at the end, your gut can never go wrong. That is one of the things that I've told myself, especially coming into the 30s and now going into the 40s, that no one is more powerful than your gut, or nothing is more powerful than your gut. Listen to it while you take advice from all these other things around you that you're wearing, or listening to, or reading. What your gut tells you is the truth and the reality. So follow it. I guess maybe that's why I also come so far in whatever I'm doing, right?
Right.
Everything else is just a journey to touch upon. But what comes from within, I guess you can't go very wrong
No,
with that.
definitely. And especially, I can relate because being an entrepreneur, again, without your instinct and your gut, I mean, even outside of fitness,
Yeah.
it's uh, essential to rely on it, right? Even if
Agreed.
it means that five people are telling you no,
Yeah.
if your gut tells you yes, sometimes you have to take the plunge, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I think gut is very important. I mean, people call it different things. They say, just a optimistic mindset or, overall your instinct or gut or
Yeah.
whatever you
Yeah.
call it. I think it's quite valuable.
But I guess that's why also they say be cautious of what you put in your gut.
Right.
I was reading a very interesting book on Ayurveda, and she says that the reason why it's called gut feeling is also because what you put in your gut,
Yeah.
that is also a feeling. That's an emotion. Why are you eating the sugars? Why is your consumption of carbs high? Um, your gut is wanting certain things. It's
Yeah.
so emotionally also connected. So there's very deep science behind
A
it. Of
lot, and
course,
especially in the recent years, in fact, that science has evolved a lot.
yeah,
There's a lot
yeah,
of research papers which are talking about how the gut microbiome
yes,
is your second brain,
yes,
right?
exactly.
So, in fact, people are getting into prebiotics, probiotics, like,
Yes.
things like kimchi, which were
Yeah, yeah,
people looked down upon. Now they are incorporating in their
yeah,
diets. Are
yeah.
pickles? They are
Pickles.
fermented, right?
Yes, yes.
So, any kind of fermented foods, any kind of prebiotic fiber,
Yeah.
fiber is
Even
suddenly
dahi.
getting.
Even
Dahi is
dahi.
an amazing
Yeah,
source of,
exactly.
probiotics,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And what we do in Snackable as well is we use this ingredient called fructooligosaccharides. It's a prebiotic fiber which is derived from fruits and vegetables, right?
Okay.
And we use it in some of our products as a sweetener and a prebiotic fiber,
Okay.
right? So, again, it's low GI because it's very fibrous, right? So it doesn't have a very high glycemic index, and That's seen a lot of customers coming back to us for those products. But yeah, gut I think is a very big area. Maybe we need a separate
Yeah,
podcast to
yeah,
just cover
yeah,
that.
I agree.
But yeah, coming down, I think to the next topic which I want to discuss, before we can call it a day, is the mental aspect of being an athlete or being in fitness, right? I think you've had a very interesting journey and a roller coaster of a ride, right? So, how have you gone through that, and how has your mental well-being been kept at check, right? So, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, as a young athlete, I think I was very driven by the Olympic gold medal that I wanted for my country because I just didn't look like my father always said, what's the point in participating if you're not going to aim to win?
Hmm.
So we had this thing that we had to win a medal for India. And when you set a standard so high, it's not something you just talk about and feel good about. Like everybody will be like, wow, you want to like represent India at the Olympics. You have to live by that statement, right? It's a different story that I didn't become an Olympian, but in on the journey of wanting to become an Olympian, I think I did everything that was in my capacity or my capability to get closer to that goal. And it you need to be really resilient to fight a lot of forces, especially in sport because a sport is not clean. There's a lot of things that are not clean in a space where you when you want to represent your country. So you have to be ready for that. You're going to have injuries. You're going to have downfalls. Everything came as a challenge where maybe we were not prepped for it, but we just knew how to tackle it because our goal was so high.
Hmm.
We had set that standard so high that no matter what came our way, be it an accident, be it we had financial struggles as well. We had a few injuries in the 20s, changing hands with coaches, many things that kind of throwing us back. Like it felt like you were coming back to zero, but never once did we forget the goal, the end goal that was to represent India and win for India. And it was my dad's only dream to represent that I represented India and he saw the flag on me. Unfortunately, he's not there anymore, but this year I will be representing India
Wow.
in August. So
And where?
in Sweden, I'll be
Okay.
going for the World Master Athletics.
Wow.
It's something that we were going to do together because that's the only dream we've ever lived. Like I don't think we saw life beyond the Olympics.
Wow.
It was such a drive for us. It drove my dad's whole life. I think it drove a big part of my life. At many times, I thought to myself, am I even doing this for myself? Or am I doing it for him? But I guess deep down somewhere it was also my dream because
Right.
the only thing I was good at was running. I was quite useless at other things. I hated studying. I never wanted to work. All I wanted to do was run for India. So even when I actually got a job, I used to cringe going to work. Even though I worked at a gym, I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. I just want to go out and train,
Right.
So I think it's been amazing, the journey. Like, I can't once say that we had more we had more lows than highs, to tell you the truth, but I wouldn't want it any other way.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's amazing. Like, I can't believe I'm already 37. It just feels like I was 17 yesterday and still running, you know?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, right? Time just flies and oh, I get emo now.
No, but amazing story. I think, some great takeaways from this chat which we have had. And I think, one thing which I think at least I was left with is being that passionate about something is so important, right?
Yeah.
If you find your purpose and whatever
Yes.
the struggles that you come across, I think it's easy to overcome them if you have that passion and that
Yeah.
obsession,
Yeah.
right?
Also, one
So,
small thing,
yeah.
sorry, I'll add here is that a lot of people think, especially in urban cities,
Yeah.
a lot of people think, oh, I have this problem, I have that problem. I can't do this because I have this problem. But when you see your problems compared to the problems that you see that people in rural India or from lower marginalized communities are facing, you realize how blessed you are to what for what you have.
Right.
You have a roof over your head, you have clothes that you wear. You may not have the perfect life, but you still have a life that most people would crave for. And that's what people don't value in cities, is
Yeah.
what I see more and more, because it doesn't matter if you don't wear the most expensive shoe. There are people out there running barefoot and still winning medals at nationals. So be grateful for what you have.
Right.
It's the reality of sport in this country that the people who have the most are the ones who are cribbing the most, and the people who have the least are the ones who are working extremely hard, trying to escape that poverty. They're trying to make a life for themselves through that sport. So, yeah, I always tell people your problems can never be bigger than what most people are going through in this
Right.
world.
No, definitely. And that's a great, I mean, point to end this conversation with. Thanks for coming in. I think it was a great chat.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure there'll be a lot of people in the audience who will take away a lot of important points from this conversation.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
having
much.
me.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks for joining us on the first episode of The Balanced Bite. We are thrilled to have you as a part of our community. If you enjoyed the episode, do like, comment, share, and subscribe to stay updated on future videos. I'll see you in the next one.